You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is July 17th, 2024, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And today we have a show that's going to be focused on California, as we have a special guest, Loren Dean, who is he is the chair of the Riverside County Libertarian LP. He is also the Southern Area Coordinator for the California Libertarian Party, and he is also an online educator as well. So this should be a pretty good show. But before we get into any of this stuff, let me introduce you to the panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have Loren Dean with us, our special guest. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So aside from the interview we're going to do with Loren, some of the topics we're going to cover is obviously we got to talk about the Trump assassination attempt. Everybody's talking about it, and big political overtones from that. And we also want to finally get to that story on Oakland, on who can fix the roads in Oakland, because it doesn't seem like the government can. And I also wanted to make an announcement too that I was just at Freedom Fest, and so we should have a show for you in a week or two about all the cool people that we got to talk to there at Freedom Fest, and some of them will be future guests as well on the show. But as usual, we start off with a Liberty quote, and today's Liberty quote is kind of tied into what just happened politically, and I thought it's kind of an interesting quote as well, and it's from Robert F. Kennedy, and it has to do with a quote about assassinations. And he says, well, what has violence ever accomplished? What has it ever achieved? No martyr's cause has ever been stilled by an assassin's bullet. And I just thought it was kind of an interesting quote, because he said this, and his brother, John F. Kennedy, had been assassinated about 5 years before he made this quote. He made this quote specifically in reference to Martin Luther King being assassinated a day or two before he gave the speech, I believe. And then he himself was assassinated within a few months of making this quote. So it's an absolutely kind of astonishing quote. And then to top it off, his son, Robert Kennedy Jr., is in the current race for president as an independent, and he has also had some issues with security and getting Secret Service protection from the Biden administration, which, given how they performed on the Trump campaign, I'm not sure he needs them. But anyways, what do you guys think about this quote? I think it's kind of an interesting quote.
Our guest should go. Loren?
Oh, you want me to go? Well,
yes.
I've seen Bobby Kennedy Jr. speak twice now at a couple of different venues. The California State Convention, he came out and spoke, and he came out and spoke at the last Libertarian National Convention. And both times he was accompanied with a pretty robust security presence that, as libertarians, we were not used to. If you walk into a room full of libertarians, there's a better than 50% chance that more than one person is armed in that room full of libertarians, because that's just how libertarians are. And so the idea that we all had to clear the room and then pass back through a security check, and he had, private folks and wands and the whole thing. And there was some grumbling about that from some quarters. But if you stop for just a second, if there's anybody in the modern political landscape who has ample reason, demonstrable reason, to be a little concerned about weapons at political events, it's Bobby Kennedy Jr. And so, it is what it is. And clearly, we see that his concerns are not unfounded. In current events have borne that out. And that's a shame.
I did want to add on to that. I was just at Freedom Fest, and Robert F. Kennedy was there as well. And when he came in to speak, the security went way up while he was there.
Oh yeah.
And then it sort of disappeared after he was left. But I do have to say, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was not brave enough to stay and debate Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate.
Chase is hitting his stride. I'm pleased with the direction Chase is going. Yeah.
Well, you look at that quote, and in the 60s, the Kennedys suffered quite some tragedy. So first, Robert John F. Kennedy was killed in '63, November '63, and then Bobby Kennedy was killed in June of '68. And it's certainly have left its mark on American on the history of this great land of ours. But you still have to wonder about the quote itself, like almost like he was foretelling his own death, which was a horrible thing to say, because he said that no matter cause is ever lifted up or anything is ever created by an assassin bullet. And he's right. I mean, other than chaos, it creates nothing, given the current events, you have to wonder about things like that, about people who are out there who have these lunatic ideas in their head that they think that the only answer is to get a gun and fire into somebody's brain, as they tried to do this weekend, as was attempted this weekend. So it's very poignant to think about that quote being made by Robert F. Kennedy.
Tim,
yeah, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right that it doesn't work. This kind of violence doesn't work. It makes whoever it is, it makes the target 1,000 times more powerful than the target was before. I don't think anyone can see that picture of Trump pumping his fist in front of the American flag, trying to be hustled off the stage by the Secret Service, and not think that dude's the next president of the United States.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you can't. You couldn't have staged that. That's just a completely spontaneous thing, and it's one of the photos of the decade.
Yeah, of course,
and that's where we're at. Yeah.
However, that was an unsuccessful assassination attempt. So
yes.
So had it been successful, and it was darn close, about as close as you can get, without it being successful, there wouldn't have been any fist pumping going on. He would have been just lying there in a pool of blood with half his brain blown out the back of his head. And I don't know if assassination is devoid of success in some way or another, but certainly if they would have taken Trump out, they would have had success, at least in a certain aspect of it. Maybe. I mean, yeah, I sure agree with Loren about the aspect of it helping the cause in a certain way, martyrdom, that kind of stuff. But I don't know, in this day and age, with if there were forces to be that really wanted to keep someone, for example, that was for reducing the size and scope of government from that political or from the political arena, and they wanted that person out of the way, and they succeeded at that. I mean, they would certainly solidify their statist agenda if it were successful. But then again, it's like these people that seem to be involved in it don't seem to be. I mean, you can have theories going around, but they don't always seem to be directly related to the forces, that are behind military-industrial complexes, and it was my example. So I don't know. I'm a little confused. I don't know what to think.
Confused about what, Tim? I'm a little confused about your point. Please.
You're confused about what I'm confused about.
Yes, I am. Very.
That shows the extent of my confusion.
Leon, can we hold the confusion until we get to the topic later in the show? Because otherwise, we're not going to make any progress on the rest.
Can I white pill your confusion a little bit, Tim? Can I try and white pill your confusion? I think that the confusion that you're expressing is kind of a good thing. In a strange, convoluted sweep of history kind of way. Why isn't Trump already dead? Why aren't we already being deloused in a FEMA camp? Like, why isn't this already like a ludicrous fascist lockdown state? Why did lockdowns ever actually end? Like, why did COVID tyranny ever actually come to an end? Did it have to? Did it need to? Why did this end? I don't think anybody's actually in control. I think there are competing power groups within what we think is of the shadowy puppet masters of the progressive left or whatever. I don't think they're all on the same page. And they're competing with each other for some variety of dominance or favor currying or signature jobs or whatever it is. And so, yeah, nobody's really calling the shots. There are multiple people who have ideas about what should happen next, and they're not all on the same page, and they're not all marching in lockstep with each other. And so you get these weird moments like this, and everyone's stunned. Even the reaction from a lot of the big names, the anti-Trump names, right? I mean, you have your loonies online who like say really awful things like "don't miss next time" and stuff like that. In fact, I think probably a great example of this is the Tenacious D concert. Did you guys see the headlines about the Tenacious D concert?
No.
No,
Do you
I
know who
didn't.
Tenacious D is?
No.
Is this the Jack Black thing, or is this
Yes, this is
something-
Jack Black's
Okay,
little
Jack Black,
novelty rock
yes.
duo band, right? He and his
Okay.
bandmate, his name is, I want to say his name is Gas. They're playing a show in Australia. It's the bandmate's birthday. They bring him out a cake. They say, "Make a wish, blow out the candles." And he says on an open mic, "Don't miss Trump next time." And he blows out his candles. That's his birthday wish. And that dude got dropped by his talent agency. Jack Black canceled the rest of the tour. Like there was legitimate response to that couldn't have been anticipated by anyone. And I think that's a good thing, because it means that we're not dealing with this monolithic power structure that exists in the shadows. And that means there's lots of room for individual people to still carve out some freedom here and make it stick. And I think that's a good thing.
Since we're diving into this now, I'm going to sort of reorder the show a little bit. We're kind of knee deep into the Trump topic, so let's hit Trump now, and not literally like the left would like, but let's cover that story now, and then we'll jump back to the interview about Loren's background once we get through that topic. So James, can you bring up the visual? So obviously the Trump assassination attempt, it happened in, I believe it was it Pennsylvania? I can't remember.
Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so it was in Pennsylvania, and this happened on, I believe it was Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
And so in fact, we have a couple of shots of the video. So this is the story from the AP, but I mean, the bullet just missed his head, and we can actually show what happened here. So, James, can you roll KOL number 1, and it'll show sort of what was going on right at the moment when somebody took a shot at him.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
So something almost catastrophic happened there. We almost had a former president and a presidential contender in the current race be assassinated right in front of our eyes. And but he was down on the ground for about 30 or 40 seconds, and then he sort of popped up and literally owned the moment. So here is the second part of the video. It's KOL 2, James. Oh, James, or Invisible Hand, can you show us KOL 2?
Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we got to move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down. My shoes. Watch out.
Wait.
So that shot led to an absolutely stunner of a turnaround, I guess. Not that Trump wasn't already doing well in the campaign, but this may have sealed it. And in fact, it led to this iconic image that now will probably be tied to our history books for a long time to come. And here is the image a little bit bigger. Oh, James, maybe you could show the visual real quick. Sorry, I thought that was up. Okay. Yeah. So this is the image that this led to, and here's a larger image of it. And you can see, I mean, it's like it was framed for it to happen. I mean, I can't think of a more iconic image that this is going to stick. And yeah, and of course, what we saw in the video as well was just it almost looked like a circus with respect to the Secret Service. They weren't quite sure what they were going to do, and it's also leading to a lot of recriminations about the Secret Service. I mean, they're saying that they literally spotted the shooter like 20 minutes before he shot, and he still got a shot off. Anyway, what do you guys think about the moment, and maybe what some of the implications are for the campaign 2024?
Well, you see that picture you just showed, Jason, the one with Trump on his face, the American flag flying in the background, and Trump being escorted, blood on his face. I think that photo will put Donald Trump back in the White House because it shows a man of courage. You could like or you could hate Donald Trump, but it shows a man of courage. It shows a leader. It shows a man willing to fight for this country. The flag in the background tells you that. I think these people inadvertently put Donald Trump back in the White House. We've been talking about this on this very show. We've been talking so very long about this Trump derangement syndrome. This was the ultimate of it. They had their whole lawfare. They did all of that. They impeached him. They did all of these things. And now it came to this. Now, I'm not saying there was any conspiracy involved in the actual shooting of Trump, even though I have a lot of questions about it. But all of this tied together. Just last week or the week before, we had on this very show, Joy Reid, I should say Joyless Reid, talking about...
And we're going to have a clip of that again in just a little bit.
Please show it. Oh, I am voting for anybody the Democrats put up. If it's Joe Biden, comatose Joe Biden, I'm voting for him because he's not Hitler. And she mentioned Hitler many times in a little clip. This is a Trump derangement syndrome. And you know what it did? It's going to end up with Donald Trump back in the White House, back in that Oval Office.
Yeah. Do you guys want to comment, either Loren or Tim, on the moment before we get into the Trump derangement syndrome part of all this? Or...
Oh, well, I mean, I think Leon's absolutely right. The projection of strength in that photo is like Pulitzer worthy. If the Pulitzer was an honest award anymore,
yes,
that would be the winner. I don't know that you could do a picture better than that captures anything better than that, any moment better than that. I mean, leading up to all of that, though, I mean, I read today that the local PD actually had their little field command in the building that this shooter was on the roof of.
Yes.
And you know, guys, there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I don't think they're going to get answered to anyone's satisfaction. And again, that's only going to help Trump. Every obfuscation, every closed door hearing, every stone wall, every inability to answer a question, every unwillingness to be accountable for anything by anyone is only going to make his supporters love him more, and it's going to make normal guys at the sports bar watching it on TV say, "I'll vote for that guy." Yes. It's just a huge in much the same way that people voted for Trump the first time, right? Trump's just a huge middle finger to the establishment. Nobody really knows what Trump stands for. Trump's not entirely certain what Trump stands for, but he projects this strength, and he projects this vibe that he's just this hand grenade, and you're going to roll him into the federal government apparatus and let it go off, because screw all those people anyway. And so here goes Trump. And that's why everybody voted for him the first time. It's why the establishment didn't know how to handle him. He doesn't play by any rules. He doesn't do any of that. In fact, I just read the other day that his willingness to go off script probably saved his life, because he was hunched forward and turned around backward, looking at the screen behind him instead of reading his teleprompter. So
imagine if he had a Mitch McConnell moment up there. That
exactly.
would be the end of Donald Trump.
If he just froze, in the sniper scope for a second, that's dark. but okay. But you know, I think that Leon's totally on, and I think he's absolutely right too. That you can't demonize someone as an existential threat to all that is America for 8 straight years and not expect some crazy person to decide he's the guy and I've got to do it and I'm going to go take care of it and I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to be the Joan of Arc that does this thing and I'm going to be remembered for it. I'm going to be a hero. And yeah, I mean, this is what happens. And all of these folks who did this line, and we're going to hear a quote in a second, I understand. All these people are culpable. All these people are culpable. They push these people to it.
Indeed.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything remarkable to add to all of that. Yeah, I think you guys are right that he's got a good shot, a better shot than prior, actually. But and yeah, we'll talk about the questions we all have about what led the shot to be fired in the first place. You know, how that was allowed under the circumstances. But so since it was allowed and it went off and it missed and he got the great photo op there, things are looking pretty good at the moment. And we'll see how this plays out. But I seriously doubt, since it is totally government, no one will ever get in trouble. No one will get fired. No one will get blamed. No one will, no one will lose their job over it. That's my prediction for that.
Well, Tim, one of the things that struck me about this whole thing too is if anybody is ever skeptical of government, I mean, this has to be the ultimate example of that. I mean, here you have an organization that most people thought was competent in protecting a president. I mean, that their focused job protecting the president, and they literally, the story goes that there were people. I mean, there were just people in the audience pointing out the shooter minutes before the shooter fired. So, I mean, these are people that are completely untrained, just people out there. Hey, look over there, police, there's a guy with a gun. And there are literally videos of this out there. And it took them like 20 minutes to react. It sounds like the police to all of this stuff in the Secret Service. And then when they did react, they were late, and of course a shot got off, and it was just maybe divine intervention potentially that saved Trump. I don't know.
Well, it wasn't Secret Service intervention. I'll guarantee that.
Exactly.
The Secret Service sniper had this guy in his sights, was watching him through the scope for a long time. Yeah.
I think about if I'm not mistaken, about 80 seconds he had him on the scope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plenty of time. And why, I don't know their protocols. I don't know their standard operating procedures. I don't know what they have to go through in order to get a shot. But I mean, if it's an indictment of anything, it's top-down central planning. If this sniper had to ask permission to take a shot, then that's an example of top-down central planning doing its typical dumb thing that it does. And
this is a crazy thing when you talk about protocols. They've even been caught lying to the public already about what their protocols are, because they tried to say that the slope of the roof that the shooter was on was too slanted for them to have Secret Service agents up there. And yet there's pictures of Secret Service agents on other roofs nearby that had the same or bigger slant than that slope.
It is such a ridiculous statement, because I always thought the protocol was that whenever there's a threat to a protectee, an active threat to a protectee, the Secret Service agent who is recognizing that threat can take any action necessary to eliminate the threat. I thought that's what it was. But according to what happened here now, I don't know if this is true. The sniper, the Secret Service sniper, had this guy in his sight for about 80 seconds, I am told. I don't know if that is completely true, but he called it in. He sent it up the chain of command for permission to take him out, and he did not get a response in time. And this is what I think led to the shot being getting off and finally, well, thank God it missed most of Trump. It just got his air. But the idea, and you guys are correct about this central planning issue, because prior times I thought the Secret Service agent at the site, he can take action against any threat against his protectee. You know, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and how about not even taking a shot, but just getting the president out of the way? How about
Right.
that? Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, hey, I got this guy. I think he's a shooter. Get rid of get the president off stage, or whatever code word they utilize. You know, it's fast. It's all coded. It's all, you know, they're supposed to be at least professional. So I'm going to assume they are. So yeah. How come they went on and on and on and on and on and on and let that guy get the first shot, and without removing Trump off the stadium?
In the first case, exactly.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. Because if you remember during COVID, and Loren, I'll give you a chance to speak here. Let me just make this point. During COVID, Trump was on live TV, giving a speech about updating something about COVID and that kind of stuff. His body man, who's a Secret Service agent, came to him and said, "Mr. President, in the center of his briefing, Mr. President, I'm sorry, you have to come with me." And Trump was kind of surprised. He said, "I'm sorry, sir, but they got to come with me." Somebody had fired some shots outside the White House, okay, outside the White House, and they took Trump to a safe. They took him to a safe location, whatever. I don't know what a bunker, whatever the hell they call it. I don't know, but they moved him from where he was. And here we have a case, and Tim, you're absolutely right. Here we have a case where a threat was already identified prior to him taking the stage, and they left him on the stage. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, you can even see the Secret Service sniper do what I would consider to be just an automatic reaction. He lifts his head up real close when the first shot rang out, and then he went back down on the scope and made his shot.
Right.
But that reaction is like, you know, you see a puff of smoke and you're in your big scope, and that's what you're looking at, and a big puff of smoke comes out. The first reaction 99 out of 100 people are going to do is they're going to jerk back, right? That's exactly what it did. So
let me just jump in real quick here to let the audience know that if you're on public access watching us, you can watch the rest of the show online and find a lot of our other shows there too. Back to the show. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, that's it. You know, so what that indicates is he was just looking at him right down the scope. And anyway, I would love to see an interview of that guy. I probably never will, because there'd be too much, you know, they're not going to blab on the, you know, public airways about anything. You know, I'm not going to talk about my private life either, but seriously, I mean, some's got to be taken care of here, or else they disband the whole Secret Service and you know, just go for it. You know, whatever they're going to do. There's some serious issues there.
I'm sure there are a whole bunch of military veterans, and I've already seen a few, whether they're legitimate, you know, whether they're for real or not. You know, the social media posts are coming out. Hey, Trump, call me. You know, yeah. I'll join your security detail for free. And to their credit, there's a whole pile of U.S. military veterans who have learned how to secure areas and secure targets and put themselves in harm's way. Who love a guy like Trump. They respect. I mean, at this point, you can credibly call Trump a combat leader if you really want to do that. The guy stood there and took fire, and there's a lot of guys who have a lot of respect for that, and that can't be discounted. I think we also, just real quick, so I know that we're kind of on a lot of stuff here, but we need to recognize that a bystander did die. Yes. And it's important. I think that we just acknowledge condolences to the family and so on. Right. This is a dude who was participating in a political rally. He was engaging his rights as a citizen, and he died. And that is the real tragedy of the whole thing, beyond systemic failure and all of that. Some dude, father, great guy, apparently by all accounts, he's dead, and that's a shame.
Well, and he died trying to shield his wife and his daughter. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Well, the one thing I wanted to add to that too is to keep in mind that this was either gross negligence. I mean, 20 minutes they knew about this guy, right? And they didn't stop the shooting. They didn't avoid this happening in the first place. 20 minutes. I mean, can you imagine in a movie knowing that, hey, the whole government knows there's a guy sitting there for 20 minutes? You'd be going out to get a soda at the snack bar and come back in. I mean, it's crazy. And 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and
I would like to believe that there is an attack lawyer somewhere who is warming up a lawsuit on behalf of the comparatory family.
Oh, yes.
There's got to be a wrongful death or a negligence claim to be made here somewhere.
Well, and this goes to something else. From what we've seen, maybe it wasn't just simple negligence too, which is a scary thought. But I mean, nowadays it's pretty hard to know with these things. But I mean, in the very best case, it's massive negligence, and that really brings the question: if that's what these guys are there for, this government entity, and they can't even do that we can't even be sure that they're going to do that, why are we trusting them with so many things that are going on out there? Not just this entity, but so many of our government agencies. It's just absolutely
absolutely. Let's take the hard libertarian tack now and recognize that this kind of negligence and incompetence is endemic to the entire government enterprise. And we can say, look, there's negligent fools who are operating in the Secret Service and are operating in the federal apparatus, but there are negligent fools in your hometown too, who are on your city council and your school board and a variety of other places, and they're screwing your life up in real time right now, and they need to be paid attention to just the same.
Well, I do want to jump onto the next. Leon, let's jump onto the Trump derangement stuff real quick, because otherwise we're going to run out of time here. So, as far as Leon, you raised this point earlier on in the discussion, and I mean, the public, how does this happen that somebody hates the person who's running so much that they're going to do this? And I mean, I think with Trump, we've seen kind of a special candidate where, in the sense that almost 8 years now since he began running for office in 2016, 2015, right around in that time frame, I mean, he has had people constantly referring to him as Hitler, and that it'll be the end of the country if he gets elected. And they're saying that now, even though he's actually been elected already before, which is bizarre. The country's going to end if this guy gets elected, and yet we already have an example that didn't happen. But James, maybe you could show a visual here. I just want to show some of the highlights of what happened back then. We go back to 2016, and they literally, when he got elected, there was a play that they put out, a Julius Caesar play, where they have Trump as the Caesar getting stabbed to death at the end of the play. That's just what they did. People who really don't like Trump. Then there was, of course, the Kathy Griffin episode, where she went out and she decided, this is sort of a lefty comedian who decided, hey, I'm just going to show this very unfunny picture of myself holding Donald Trump's decapitated head. And this just sort of became a norm. And we've been exposed to this for about 3 years. And so maybe we could even hear some of what some of these people are saying, because it's not just politicians and it's not just media, it's so many people out there, and we have a few examples. So James, can you play KOL number 3? I have a couple video examples to show these people.
Some people have criticized you because you've been pretty open about your dislike for Mr. Trump and the danger he poses to democracy. You once famously said you'd like to punch him in the face. But right now, he's leading in the polls in 5 battleground states. Any advice to the Biden campaign or the voters? What are you thinking?
Well, I think I don't understand why people are not taking him seriously, because you read about it historically in other countries that they didn't take the people seriously. I think Hitler, Mussolini, but they're fools and clowns.
So there you go, comparing Trump to Hitler right on the stage, and it doesn't faze anybody, and the audience cheers when they talk about punching him in the face. So, I mean, this is what we've got. Now, we've got another clip here of Joy Reid, which Leon alluded to. We used that in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, having no idea that a week ago when we played this, that this might have riled somebody up. James, can you play KOL number 4?
Y'all just tell me who the nominee is going to be. Let me know when you guys are finished fighting amongst yourselves who I got to vote for in November to keep Hitler out the White House. That's all I want to know. Who I got to vote for to keep Hitler out the White House. Oh, and by the way, if it's Biden in a coma, I'm going to vote for Biden in a coma. I don't even really particularly like the guy. A lot of his policies, don't like him. He's not Donald Trump, right? Yeah, Hitler, White House. We keeping him out.
Now that's Joy Reid, one of the key people on MSNBC. She has her own show. She's like an anchor there for the network, and that's her literally just calling Trump Hitler, over and over and over again. Now here is Biden himself talking, and he doesn't actually refer to him as Hitler, but you can kind of see the, hey, it's the end of the world if Trump gets elected. So James, can you play KOL number 5? This was from a Philadelphia speech from Biden about 2 years ago.
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. The MAGA Republicans believe that for them to succeed, everyone else has to fail. After the 2020 election, as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections, they tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people. This time, they're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Ludwig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy.
So that was a few clips combined together from a 26-minute speech that Biden gave. But, clearly end of the country if Trump gets elected, and MAGA only wins.
There's nothing at all that says end of the country like that really harsh, ominous red lighting behind Biden as he makes weird dictatorial pronouncements from the podium with Marines behind him talking about how his opposition is demonic. Come on. Yeah.
It's really funny. It's really funny. I mean, I probably shouldn't be laughing at this. These idiots think Trump is a threat to democracy, and we don't even have a democracy here in this great land of ours. We're a republic, damn fools, if you didn't know, okay? But yet they insist about him being a threat to democracy. He's a threat to something that don't even exist in the United States at a practical level. But be that as it may, when you look at the extent of the demonization that have been going on with this man, starting from the day he came down that elevator in Trump Towers to this day, look at all the things they have tried, all the things they have said, all the demonization that have occurred. Why would we now be shocked?
Yeah, and to add to what you just said, Leon, now with all that lawfare, I had another clip that I wanted to use, but we just had too many for the show. But Biden now is using all of that lawfare on the campaign trail to say that Trump is a criminal. He's a convicted 34 counts of this, and he's a rapist, and he's this, that, and the other thing. For all that everybody can see, these have been trumped up charges. No pun intended, I guess. But yeah, but I mean, they're just literally going after him on all these things, and then just trying to use it for campaigning purposes. I mean, you talk about election interference. It's just absolutely insane.
Have you, playing devil's advocate, have we seen similar things from the right or from the Republicans about the death of the nation, the death of the republic, or as I think Biden put it, the foundations on which the republic was built? If Biden is elected, have we seen that?
I think
it's valid.
The economy will fail. I
think that's valid. And if you go and hang out with sort of the Trump base, there's a certain messianic apocalypticism that drifts through that. There's a thread there, definitely, that this is the last best hope. There's a weird irony in the idea that Donald Trump is somehow a messenger from heaven that has been sent on a holy mission to save the republic. Of all the messengers, I don't know that Donald Trump is the guy that you would think, yeah, that's the one. Like, of all the people
I
that
thought
God
Ron
could conceivably
Paul was
have
that.
chosen, he said, yeah, that guy. It's Donald Trump. He's my guy. I'm not sure that that's what was going down behind the pearly gates when God decided it was time to save this land. But here we are nonetheless.
We're beyond understanding God's thoughts, and I'll grant that. But I always thought it was Ron Paul that was the chosen one, but then that didn't work out either. So here we are.
Well, Tim, I want to go back to your question. You said you were playing devil's advocate, and while I mean politicians go at each other in sometimes very bad ways, I mean. And I have to fully disclose that I am a man of the right, and so I don't want to sound too self-righteous here. But I would say most of the attacks, I mean, I'm talking about the personal attacks now, not policy attacks. We have had, I mean, we on the right, we do a lot of policy attacks on the Democrats, no doubt about it. And I have made some what some people might consider inflammatory statements right here on this show. Okay, so but when you look at terms of personal attacks as opposed to policy attacks, I think the vast majority of it seriously comes from the left, quite frankly. And I mean, I think if we were to go back and make a check, I think I would be borne out that to be true. I really think so.
I'm inclined to agree, and I think that there are really two big things, two big weaknesses in the broad right. The left and right is such a hollow dichotomy anymore. It's hard to really know what those mean. But within this sort of conservative bloc, I think there are two big facets of that mindset that ultimately take them out of contention. The first is a lot of them are inherently good people. And so they want to forgive other people. A lot of them are operating in theological systems, Christianity, right, where forgiveness and loving your neighbor is something that you actually talk about. It's a thing that is taught on a regular basis. It's part of their cultural DNA. And that is coupled with the fact that for the vast majority of conservative people, and I think this is very true of libertarians too, they hate politics. They think that government is soul-staining. They don't want to be involved in it. It's all very distasteful to them, and they would rather not have to deal with it if they can help it. And so what a lot of conservatives want more than anything is just not to have to deal with any of this because it's stupid. They just don't want to be involved. And so it's very easy for those people to just fall out of action and just go quiet and then just rot. I mean, we just, J.D. Vance wrote a whole book about it. Right. Mm-hmm. You end up with these communities that just rot. No one cares. No one in the community cares. No one outside the community cares about the people inside the community, and they just rot and decay. That's a shame. But ultimately, that's the direction that conservatism tends to go as I've seen it in a lot of places. So a guy like Trump, yeah, he provides energy that people can get behind. Without him, I think a lot of them would just go quiet again. And just go home, watch the playoffs, have a beer, wait for deer season to start, and not really worry about it because ain't nothing we can do anyway. So there you go.
And I think, Loren, I think you're right because one of Trump's big theme has been the forgotten man, right? He always talk about that, the forgotten man, and so in a sense, I can see the logic of your statements that it's very easy for us to fall into this cycle of we are remembered for a little while and then the politicians forget about us and we go back to our lives and it end up being not the life that we anticipated or we had hoped for so I can see a point on that.
Well, Loren, let's push Trump and all this conservative stuff to the side now and get to the good stuff. Let's let's find out about your journey in liberty and what you're doing in the Libertarian Party. You know, you work in online education and you've been in the California Libertarian Party. It sounds like you know, some of that might have been inspired a little bit during the COVID period. So what was it that sort of brought you into the liberty movement? What rang your liberty bell?
Oh, well, I grew up in Riverside, here in California. At the time, Riverside had 250,000 people in it. It's at 300,000 now. It's a city, you know. And growing up in an environment like that, you don't really see government. The government's invisible. It sits behind several layers of camouflage. Stuff seems to be happening. Police cars are going somewhere, and fire trucks are going somewhere, and ambulances are going somewhere. Trash gets picked up. But how any of that works is a completely opaque mystery. And there's a sense that you just can't ever really know how any of that works. And that made me suspicious. It made me kind of suspicious. And I've always been a little skeptical of people who purport to have all the answers to anything. And so I actually, I distinctly recall casting my first presidential vote for Ross Perot in 1992. It was because I was just suspicious of everybody who purported to have the answers to those things. So I've always kind of sat in that independent spot for a while without really following up on it at all. But I moved out of the state. I landed in Oklahoma in about 2007 to raise my own kids outside of California. Tale as old as time. I went somewhere else to raise my own children because I didn't want to raise them in California. So I ended up in Oklahoma and landed in a small town, population 5,000, right in the middle of Oklahoma. I worked in manufacturing. I was living in a Norman Rockwell painting. It was that middle America factory town. There aren't a lot of towns like that left in America. There were only 300 kids in the high school. It was a great place to raise my kids. But it was also the place where I finally saw government. I finally got to see how government worked, because the people who were on the city council were people that you would run into in the grocery store aisle. And I was in school band boosters with people who were on the school board. And one of those band boosters was married to a county commissioner, right? What we would call a county supervisor here in California. So like those organs of government, I realized for the first time were very close. They weren't nearly as opaque or hidden as they tend to want you to believe they are. And I watched them screw stuff up. You know, the solution to anything is to pass more sales taxes so that, you know, we can fund whatever, this, that, the other thing. You know, the little town of Perry, Oklahoma has a 10.5% sales tax on everything, because the 0.5 cent here and 1/4 cent here and 1 cent for this, and well, we got to have roads, and we got to have a hospital, and we got to have schools, and we got to, you know, we got to invest in business and hope that somebody's going to move to Perry. No, ain't nobody moving to Perry, guys. Perry's the way that it is. But yeah, so I watched normal people try and use government to fix the problems of a community and fail, and I watched that happen repeatedly. And
just curious, so you didn't see that in California?
Well, not really. Right? No, as a kid yeah, growing up, sure. I know, I get it. Right now, you blind fool, how could you not have seen? But you know, as a kid growing up, the best I could get to was just suspicion. Right? I don't know exactly what's going on, but whatever it is, I'm not sure that it's good. But I don't know how to even wrap my hands around what the problem even is. Because you don't know who the people are that are in government. They just appear at things from time to time, and then they go back into whatever ethereal land they live in, and then pop out again when you need to summon a politician. You can't see it because it's so big and it's so entrenched everywhere. So so during this time, as I was finally recognizing that government really is that dumb, I came across Reason Online. Reason.com in the 2013, 2014 zone. And that became break time and lunchtime reading for me. And that branched into FEE.org, the Foundation for Economic Education guys, the Mises Institute, right? Once you start down that online libertarian rabbit hole, you can get to some really meaty stuff. And yeah, so eventually, the Libertarian Party got ballot access in 2016 with the Gary Johnson campaign in Oklahoma. So I was one of 9. I became one of the first 9 registered libertarians in Noble County, Oklahoma. I never met the other 8, but there were 9 of us, the registered libertarian voters, and that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. But I was off in a small town. I never really connected with the Oklahoma Libertarian Party at all. But in 2019, the company I was working for got bought, and all of us who worked there had stock in the company, and so we all kind of got a little surprise nest egg off this purchase. My kids were grown and gone. My wife decided it was time for her to go too, and so finding myself alone, with a little bit of money, I thought, well, I guess I will return to the land of my people. So I returned to California.
You came back to California after leaving.
Back to California.
You decided to become a martyr. It sounds like.
Wow.
You know what? Going to California.
I would walk into places, and this stunned me, right? Because I'm coming back after 12, 13, 14 years, and everything felt worse. Like there was stuff felt hopeless. Stuff like people had just given up. No one cared about anything. And I would walk into places and say, you'd be chatting with people and say, yeah, I just moved back, to California. And everyone, without exception, would immediately ask, why?
Why? Yes.
There were people were astonished that someone would come to California voluntarily, unless you were like a refugee or something like that. Like, why would you come to California? Why would you do that? California's lame. Why would you go? The gun shop was the best place, come in like, hey, just moved back, looking for a magazine for this, that, the other things. You just moved back. Yeah. Why? The gun people are super, get out of California.
Yeah.
But, I have a unrelated question for you, Loren.
Sure.
Jason's probably going to be mad at me, but have you ever been in or around the Ontario Motor Speedway or the Riverside Speedway back in the day?
No. The short answer is no. And in fact, there's a housing development and a mall on the old Riverside Motor Speedway now. Yeah. And I actually shopped there. I live close to the area, so that's where I end up doing a lot of my shopping and that. And driving around, I think to myself, once upon a time, this was Riverside International, like where I'm driving right now, which is totally insane because these neighborhoods have all encroached right up against it. And my memory of it as a kid is that Riverside Speedway was like way out in the boonies. And no, it wasn't at all. It was right there. I would love it if they had never bulldozed the thing, but it is what it is. Thanks, government.
I moved
back in 2019. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
2019. In this journey that you have just described to us, okay, when in that journey did you say to yourself, I am a libertarian? When did that happen?
Well, I came back to California ready to say I was a libertarian. I had registered to vote as a libertarian in Oklahoma. I came back to California having done some online research and realized apparently there's a bunch of libertarians in California. And so I was really excited to meet libertarians in California. I'm going to meet some people and I'm going to have some conversations and this is going to be great. And so I got on Facebook and I found the local affiliate and I went out to a Bob's Big Boy in Calamasa to a backroom meeting they were having. It's the restaurant at the end of the universe. Calamasa is the middle of nowhere. And so I'm sitting in this Bob's Big Boy in Calamasa with like 8 other libertarians from Riverside County. And I thought, awesome. Like, this is the most libertarians I have ever been in the room with. And I was super ready to get involved. And then like 2 meetings after that, they were like, okay, we're having our annual election of officers and we need a vice chair. And everybody looked at me. And I said, what does the vice chair even do? And they said, don't even worry about it. We just need somebody to be in the thing so that we have the position filled. And that's all you need to do is just have the position. And I said, well, okay, I guess. And now here I am. Now I'm the chair of the county affiliate. I'm the state Southern Area coordinator. It doesn't take long once you get started to really get into it.
It sounds like it's almost involuntary.
Well, some of it is involuntary. Some of it is involuntary. I can see where you would think that from the way that I'm couching this story. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, if not me, who? And we all have to have this moment with ourselves from time to time. If I don't do something here, if I don't stand up and step forward and take an action here, who will? And in many cases, sadly, the answer is nobody. Nobody's going to do it if you don't. And so there are some things that you're going to have to do that are going to make you uncomfortable. There are some things you're going to do that are going to be scary, super scary, but you have to do them. Because if you don't, no one will. One of the things that we as Californians are incredibly bad at is getting to know our neighbors. Like the simple act of getting to know your neighbors. If you ask a random person in California, do you know your neighbors? Better than 50%, the answer is no. Nobody knows the names of their neighbors. Or maybe you know one neighbor, but not the other one. Or maybe you know your 2 neighbors, but no one 2 doors down. Like, that's it. The circle's very small. And that's not a recipe for a healthy society. It's a recipe for people who become dependent on government. Authoritarians who will say, you don't need to get to know your neighbors. You don't ever need to talk to your neighbors. You just pay your taxes and give us money and give us power, and we will make sure that those people never trouble you. And that's a siren song. And a lot of people listen to that siren song. A lot of people get seduced by that siren song. And people need to not.
So do you believe that the libertarian philosophy, the whole concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which I really love that phrase, by the way.
Yeah.
Do you believe
your body is your body is your body, your property is your property, your speech is your speech. You kneel at whatever altar moves you, but you do not get to force anybody to kneel alongside you. You live your life the way that you see fit, as long as you're not hurting anybody else.
Indeed. So do you believe that philosophy is growing, or do you believe it is shrinking?
Is it growing or shrinking?
Yeah, is it growing? Is it growing in the population in our society, or is it a dying philosophy in our society?
I think that it's static. I think that it grows, it waxes and wanes with different groups of people at different times in such a way that the number kind of stays the same over time. The different people will get disillusioned and drift away from it, while other people will realize that this really is the only way to do this and then come on board with it. And that process is ongoing. Every effect is the cause of another effect. And as some people leave, other people come on board. So I think that number stays more or less static. I think one of the big reasons that people do drift away, though, is just the authoritarian call. I don't want to have to do this work. It's like I've already mentioned this, right? You hate politics. I hate politics. I don't want to go get involved in politics. I don't want to go sit in 3-hour or 4-hour or 6-hour school board meetings. And I've sat in some long school board meetings, listening to the school board talk about nothing, and except how to mismanage all the funds that they got from bamboozling the city of Riverside into passing a multi-billion-dollar bond measure, none of the money of which is going to be spent responsibly. And it's going to put the taxpayers of Riverside on the hook for like $100 billion over the next 30 years. Huge meetings get held about this stuff, right? Massive conversations get had about this stuff. And in many instances, no one from the community shows up to these meetings because everyone's glued to the news. What insane thing. Look, so check this out. There's a thing on TikTok. Joe Biden fell down some stairs. Look at this guy. This guy. Unbelievable. Look at this guy. Right? And that's what everybody's talking about. Nobody's talking about the fact that the school board just put you on the hook for $100 billion over the next 30 years. And that's something that's bad news for you right now today. And you need to get involved with that, because if you don't, nobody's gonna.
Well, Loren, and just for anybody who's listening and they kind of want to understand what it is you do, so it sounds like these are some of the things you do. Then you go to local government meetings and try and understand what sort of some of the tasks and challenges that you take on, just in case you try and make somebody else an offer that they can't refuse as a new libertarian.
Well, my motto in all of my activism is that the future is local. Ultimately, the future is local, and whatever happens, right? Whatever happens with federal elections, whatever happens in Washington, that's all far, far away. And I'll sit down with many people. I will get like an email when somebody pings the state party for information, or somebody moves into the area or something. I will get an email to say, hey, here's this new guy, and I'll contact him, and I'll try and at least call, or a lot of this in really, really fortuitous circumstances, I'll actually go meet somebody for lunch, right? Some new person who's moved into the county, and we'll sit down for lunch, and I'll say, so what brought you to libertarianism? Kind of the same way that we've started this conversation, right? Tell me about your journey. What brought you to this? And the 9 out of 10 times, the answer is Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and the New World Order and the CBDC currency and social credit scores and these massive dystopian problems that we have to oppose. Darn it. We got to do something about these things. And I will stop at some point in the conversation and say, let me ask you a question. Do you know who your city councilman is? And the answer 9 times in 10 is no. That you don't know who's on your city council. Well, city council has control of a shocking amount of stuff with regard to your life. And they can mess with your life right now. I lived in Adelanto on the high desert for a couple of years. We bought a house out there, new development, 2004-ish, housing bubble, all of that. We built a deck, right? We put a deck on the back of the house. 2 years later, we got a letter from Adelanto's code enforcement department informing us that we had not gotten a permit for our deck, and that an inspector was going to have to come out and inspect it, and we were going to have to pay the back whatever it was fee, and he was going to have to inspect the concrete pilings underneath it. So we were going to have to dig out under the deck so that he could see the concrete that was underneath there and make sure that we had poured the concrete. Well, the deck hasn't moved for 2 years. Ain't nothing happened. It hasn't fallen off the house. Nothing's gone bad. Why is this a problem at all? It's a problem because normal people have let this happen. They've been told by their local governments that you just give us power and we'll make sure that you're safe. Not that you're safe, that you'll feel safe. We'll make sure that you feel safe. And a lot of people buy that because they just don't want to have to deal with it. And then you end up with code enforcement in people's backyards, and you end up with businesses closing for COVID, and you end up with mask mandates, and you end up with vaccine mandates, and you end up with some really ridiculous local action that is frankly offensive in many instances. It's got to be opposed, and it's got to happen locally.
So let me ask you something, Loren. This deck, I suppose, was in your backyard, was it not?
I'm sorry?
The deck you just spoke about, it was in your backyard?
Yes.
How did the city get to know about this deck?
Because it had a cover, and the cover extended past the back of the house, so you could see it from the street if you were driving by.
Oh.
And so this dude was driving by, craning his neck to see without actually going in people's yards, and then consulting the computer to see if there had been any permits pulled for adding on anything to any houses. That was this guy's job. He was being paid with tax revenue to spy on people and the things that they had done to add on to their homes. That's nuts. It's totally nuts, and it shouldn't happen. And it upsets me when it does.
It sounds like Big Brother and Little Government.
100%. 100%. Big Brother can be a tiny little government guy, and the petty bureaucrats are the worst bureaucrats. because they know they labor every day with this imposter syndrome, recognizing that their job is in fact worthless. And if they weren't at the office today, it wouldn't matter. No one would notice. And so every opportunity they get, they've got to somehow strut their importance in front of other people. And normal people suffer when that happens because they end up getting these letters for extra fees or extra whatever. Worse, it's all your political opponents. We see that writ large in lawfare against Trump and all of that sort of thing. But if you don't think that code enforcement will land on you if you become a problem, a thorn in the city council's side, if you don't think that code enforcement will come snooping around your house, if your local political leaders don't like you, you're dreaming. What's the fix for that? Get to know your political leaders and to be involved in the process.
One thing I wanted to ask you real quick too, when you were talking to us about how you came to California, back to California rather, and you said it was 2019. So that sounds like that was right smack in the middle of COVID or before COVID.
No, before COVID.
Yeah, because before. Yeah, that's right. It would have been a year before. Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, oh my
gosh.
In
fact, it was 3 months. It was November 2019. It was Veterans Day 2019 was when I came back. It was November. And so I landed and I thought, I'll give it about 6 months. And then I'll start this new chapter of my life and it'll be great, right? And then March happened and like a plane full of sick people landed at March Air Force Base right here in Riverside County. And some of the local grumpy dissident news voices started to say, this is going to be a thing. Everybody watch out for this. And I think we all did this. We all shrugged and went, this isn't going to be a thing. And even for the first couple of weeks, everybody was cool with it, right? Mm-hmm. For the most part. Everybody said, you know what? We don't know. This is true. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what this is about. We don't really have all the information. So we'll all settle in for 2 weeks, most of us. We'll do some jigsaw puzzles. We'll watch Tiger King. And you remember everybody watched Tiger King in March, April 2020, right? I was in Oklahoma for Joe Exotic's presidential run and governor run. That was good times. But everybody settled in for a couple of weeks. But, it was when they closed the churches at Easter. I think that was the moment that I think for a lot of people, they said, no, this is worse now. Something's wrong. Something's happening here that needs to be opposed and needs to be dealt with. It was incredibly heartening to me to see rebellion happen among people. And I think it brought some people out of their homes and into contact with each other in ways that they had never done. And I was really heartened to see it, and I was glad to see it. Here in Riverside, they canceled the 4th of July fireworks in 2020. They said, no, we're not going to do fireworks. It's too dangerous. People can't meet, social distancing, et cetera, et cetera. Riverside prides itself on having a really excellent 4th of July fireworks display, and they canceled it. There's a local mountain right here that can be seen from everywhere. They light the fireworks off on that mountain. Everybody sees it. It's a beautiful thing. They canceled it. The people of Riverside decided to do it themselves. And the city of Riverside, different neighborhoods, competed in fireworks displays for 90 straight minutes on the 4th of July. Everybody went to San Bernardino or Nevada or wherever and bought truckloads of barely legal fireworks. The whole city set off fireworks for an hour and a half. And it was glorious. I just sat out and watched and listened, and I thought, this is the sound of people who want to be free. And I was glad for that. That it was a great moment. And then I opened up Facebook, and a bunch of people were complaining about how their dog was freaking out. There's always those people, and that makes me sad.
Well, did you find that was a moment that I guess you were in the California Libertarian Party at that point? So it sounds like so.
Yeah.
So did you find that this helped you to reach these people with your messaging, I guess, or not? No, absolutely. But more than anything, though, and this is to my chagrin, right? I met these 8 libertarians in the back room of Bob's Big Boy in Calamasa, and then I realized that was it. There's not like a great libertarian underground of people that you can make contact with, like the French resistance in World War II or something, that all have secret codes and bases and stuff. That's not how the Libertarian Party works, right? This is as decentralized a movement as it gets.
In keeping with the idea that the future is local, I just get involved here in my community. So so a couple of local guys in COVID started putting together this a neighborhood alliance, right? The different cities have these neighborhood advocacy groups for different parts of town. And so these guys started to put one together. I started going to the meetings. I got on the board. I'm the secretary of their board. I wrote the bylaws for the organization. And so I'm in a position on a 9-member board with an organization with hundreds of people on the mailing list here in the neighborhood to inject liberty ideas into this conversation. I'm in a place where libertarian ideas can actually be part of the conversation. Not because the ideas are good or right. I'm not going to stand up and say my piece and expect that everyone's going to be like, man, he's right, and just change their mind. That's going to happen because they know me. That's going to happen because I've been at the meetings. They've been at the meetings with me. We've had conversations about normal stuff. They know that I'm a normal person. And so when I say, hey, what about this? Then it gets listened to. And it doesn't always get implemented. Give and take happens. But those ideas enter the stream. They enter the marketplace of ideas. Without that, they don't enter at all. I can sit on the internet and complain all day long. But if I don't go out and talk to people, none of these ideas will matter. None of them will come to fruition. So I'm glad to be able to do that. I got on the board of a local education foundation. Most towns have one of these too. Your city probably has one. It's a nonprofit foundation that is built to collect community money and then fill grants that go to classrooms. In our case, the Riverside Educational Enrichment Foundation. We receive grant requests from teachers themselves, individual teachers, for stuff that they need in their individual classrooms. A lot of it is arts related, motorized pottery wheels and that sort of thing for that band stuff. We're starting to get into some guest instruction and that kind of thing. This is a very libertarian thing, right? This is literally private solutions to these problems, gathering private money and then distributing it through a private enterprise directly to teachers to use in their classrooms to educate students, skipping all the bureaucracy, skipping all the government, skipping all the stupid school district and school board minutia and foolishness. It's a marvelous libertarian exercise. And I'm grateful to be a part of that board. And I'm grateful to promote that as an organization to everyone who I talk to. I end up at Chamber of Commerce breakfasts talking about REEF, the Education Foundation, and the work that it does, and the important work that it does. And I explain that, and people nod and go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because if you just give the money to the schools, like it ends up in some assistant superintendent's pocket and the union people and whatever, and it never actually makes it to the classroom anyway. Yes, you're right. You're learning. Learn that the bureaucracy is bad for you, and on go these conversations. And that has to be happening all the time, little by little, every day.
We've gone quite a while. So I think, unfortunately, we're in that position where we're probably going to have to kick that Oakland story to the curb again, which really is disappointing. I mean, I'd love to say talk about it, but I'm not sure that we have the bandwidth here to do it. But I did want to ask you just
fill the potholes, Oakland. Put it out there.
Yeah. Maybe by the time we get to the story, they'll start doing something about their potholes.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yes.
But no, I did want to ask you, as we kind of start to head out on the show, what are your thoughts for California going forward? I mean, with the liberty movement, how would you, I guess, recommend people who are liberty oriented get involved, and what do you think we should be doing to try and make a difference here in California? Because certainly looks bleak whenever we see the governor out there with, some new thing about a ratcheting up a minimum wage or doing some other crazy thing that's not going to let us, drive something that's not electric or whatever.
Yeah, gun control.
Yeah, gun control. Tracing your bullets.
But at the end, just you got to get involved in your community, and you've got to get to know your neighbors, and you've got to get involved in community organizations where you're meeting your neighbors and neighbors are meeting each other. You don't know when an opportunity is going to pop up for you to front a libertarian principle out into a conversation. And so you have to be in the places where those opportunities will come up. That requires that you get out of your house and go to meetings and meet people and do these things. That takes time. It's going to require that you make some time. It's going to require that you budget a little bit of money, not necessarily a lot of money, right? But you need to be aware that you're going to need to budget out some hours, do this other thing, and that may be hours that you don't spend doing something that automatically makes you some money. And it may be an instance where you're going to have to go out to lunch with somebody every once in a while, that kind of thing. But it's those little things. It's Chamber of Commerce stuff. It's Chamber of Commerce stuff that is the future. That's the future, because all these systems, Sacramento is on an unsustainable trajectory. We all know it. Well, the stuff that's going on in Sacramento simply can't be sustained. It just can't. It's all going to collapse. Part of that collapse is going to be because the federal government is on an unsustainable trajectory that's going to collapse. What comes next is going to be wide open. But the danger there is that everybody is going to then bunker up, hurdle up, and not want to talk to each other because everyone's terrified. If you're in a place where you're going to help people overcome this fear to say, okay, government can't fix this problem anymore because the government has collapsed, that means we're going to have to figure it out ourselves. Here's a possible solution. And get people to listen to you, right? Again, this is way down the road. Get people to listen to you to implement a solution that actually involves freedom. That's the great goal. That's the huge goal. But that goal can't be realized if you're not already in those places, known to those people. No one is coming to save you. There is no great savior going to ride over the hill. You're not going to be the great savior that's going to ride over the hill. Donald Trump's not going to be the great savior that rides over the hill. The best Donald Trump's going to do is burn it all down. And we're going to have to figure out what to build from the ashes. And what we build can be freedom-based, can be libertarian, can be infused with libertarian principle, but only if we libertarians are out there talking about these principles right now.
Well, James, can you bring up the Libertarian Party page real quick? Because I wanted to show people if you want to get a hold of Loren here and find out more about how you can be forced into a position in the Libertarian Party. You can
if
contact
not you, who?
Exactly. But so here you can find Loren here on the Cal Libertarian page, on the California Libertarian Party page, and you can find out more, I guess, about how you can get involved there. Did you have any other thoughts as far as outreach or anything else that you wanted to direct people towards, or?
Well, there's a contact us link on the state page, and if you fill that out, you will get a response from the state chair, and then you can subscribe to mailing lists, etc. If you live down in the South, you can email me at the email address that's right there, and I'll get you in touch with your local affiliate.
There we go. There's the contact us. Yes. So,
yep. Okay,
cool deal. Well, I can't think of anything else. So I guess, and unfortunately, if you're listening and you were waiting for that Oakland story, we're sorry, but we'll
pave
get
the roads, Oakland.
Yeah, we'll get to that story soon. So thanks so much for joining us today, Loren, and for all you people out there who are listening, before the next show, think about what you could do in your community, because this is, as Loren told us, nobody's coming to save us. This is a fight for our liberty that we have to be involved in if we want to keep it. And we try and have lots of different guests on this show who are doing lots of different things to give you ideas. So hopefully some of this will spark something in you so that you can get out there and get the idea to do something in your community, because ultimately, just as Loren said, starts in your community. So be thinking about it, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Until then, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.